Tales from the End of the World original audio recordings presents The F Room. Under a perfectly normal British overcast sky on a perfectly normal British street, Jim strolled down, taking a long drag from his ciggy. He turned the collar of his coat up against the cold and damp. Miserable bloody weather, he thought. He passed by the long lines of people with their hollowed and vacant eyes, standing at the shops, coupons in hand, waiting for big boxes of rations, toilet papers, bread, etc. Refugees from the Mushroom War. Wales was on fire, but that was okay. It was Wales. And don't get him started on Ireland or Scotland. They look like something right out of communist Russia, but only here, now, in good old Britain. There was at least the happy, a synthetic drug that caused a euphoria so you could make it through your day-to-day life in this miserable shithole world. Jim felt for the tea bags in his pocket. The 4 were in there. That's right, tea bags had become the currency. He had heard in the Americas that they were using dirty pots and pans. People were getting shot for cleaning them. Lousy Yanks, Jim thought as he reached the shop. He opened the door and the overhead bell chimed. He approached the proprietor of the shop. He slapped the 4 tea bags on the counter. "1 bag of happy, please," Jim said eagerly. The proprietor scoffed at the bags on the counter. "That'll be 5 bags," he said. "5 bags? But it was 4 last month." "Rates have gone up, my son. 4 bags should have bought him a month's supply. This was bullshit." Maybe he could reason. "Look, give me half a bag, yeah? Just half? Until I get another tea bag?" Jim broke and fell to his knees. "I'm begging you, please, sir. My mother's sick. My sister is dying. I need the happy. I need it." Jim began to weep. The proprietor rolled his eyes and called, "Security!" Jim continued to weep until he heard the heavy footsteps behind him. Jim looked up into the blue-skinned, yellow-eyed clone, its massive, muscular frame in its red jumpsuit. The clone fought. The clones fought in the Mushroom Wars, and now they were slave labor. It brought down its big hand on the back of Jim's head. Darkness swallowed him. When he awoke, he was in a plastic penalty box in a courtroom. The box was soundproof. He watched the judge angrily bang the gavel. They had called a witness who looked like a street person, pointing accusingly at him. Jim began to bang on the glass of the penalty box. The courtroom ignored him. The floor beneath him dropped out, and Jim fell into darkness again. He landed in the high-back leather chair in a very posh room. The floor was covered in a rug. Symphony music played. The walls were lined with shelves filled with books, and a fire roared in a fireplace. A man dressed like a butler stood in the center of the room and near a writing desk. A beautiful blonde dressed like a French maid brought Jim a champagne flute on a silver platter. Jim was confused, but he took the flute. Thank you." She giggled and walked off, and the butler made a tipping back motion. Jim downed it. "Very good, sir," the butler started. "We'll just wait another moment or two." "Wait for what?" Jim asked. "Oh, for the paralytic to kick in. I find it easier when we have to transport an accused to their appointed floors and rooms. If they can't move or put up a fight." Jim looked at the flute, panicked. His hand went numb and the flute fell to the floor. "Oh, good, it's starting," he said, picking up a folder from off the table. Jim wanted to ask what was starting, but his tongue had stopped working. The butler shot him a wry smile as he flipped through the folder. "It says here you are sentenced to the F room. Tough break. For trying to barter for the happy and accused by the eyewitness of your mother running off with a bear from Colorado." Ooh, how dismal. "He's ready now for you." A door somewhere opened and 2 clones marched in. Jim's eyes followed them. They grabbed him, dragged him down an entirely white hallway. "The meat hook, you two! The meat hook!" the butler instructed. They strapped Jim in a black vest with a giant hook attached and lowered him down a shaft. When Jim entered the room below, he wanted to scream. The walls were lined with feet, human cloned feet, sentient feet with eyes and mouth all snickering at him, sticking out their tongues, blowing raspberries. The F room means foot room, the butler called down from somewhere above. Okay, you two, raise the temperature there and get a nice sweat and stink going. The feet began to laugh and bounce up and down as the first trickles of sweat broke out on Jim's forehead. Inside his mind, Jim was already screaming. Tales from the End of the World original audio production presents One of Us. Jess couldn't believe where the will-o'-the-wisps had taken her. She had been following the blue fairy lights forever. She had never seen this part of the forest before. Massive trees that pulsed and bled bioluminescent colors. Massive red and white dotted toadstools. This place was weird. Things darting around in the tall grass that she couldn't make out. The wisps led her to a clearing, and her heart stopped, and her breath caught in her throat. There was a lake with purple, pink, green, and blue lights that danced on top of it, a dance floor and a band composed of woodland creatures, and a bar being served by a centaur. At the bar sat a small herd of unicorns. They sat and laughed and joked while they drank cotton candy from various colors out of martini glasses. Jess ran over to them to get a closer look. The conversation died as the unicorns noticed the girl standing there with her eyes and mouth wide open. "Hi!" Jess said more in a breathy whisper. The unicorns whinnied and whickered. They neighed and other hoarse noises. Jess squealed in delight. "Say," one spoke up, "she could be one of us." The others murmured their consent and agreement. "You mean in honor of a unicorn? Oh my God, that would be the greatest day ever! And maybe I could ride one of you, pretty please?" Jess said. "We have a better idea," one said. They began to chant, "One of us, one of us, one of us." And then one bit her on the shoulder. "Ow! Son of a bitch, you bit me!" Jess yelled, and then got woozy. The world spun before her eyes, and distorted chanting of "One of us" continued as she entered a world of darkness. "One of us." She was being carried over a field by her father. Darkness. She was in her bed. Darkness. The fever burned and blazed in her body. Darkness. Mother checking on her. Darkness. The fever. The fever. The fever. Darkness. Then light! Dreams of the clearing and laughing and chasing the unicorns up and down rainbows. Her phone going off on the nightstand the day the fever broke. It was the boyfriend. "Send me pictures of your pretty toes." She threw back her covers and stared at her majestic hooves. "She'll take pictures of those. He'll love her cute little hooves." There was something that smelled delicious outside as her stomach rumbled. The phone was going off with panicked and frantic messages. He was coming over. That was so sweet, she whinnied in the back of her throat as she threw down the phone. Her palms were getting hard as the smell drove her outside to the barn, the stables, to the meal. She began to feed with the other horse brethren. They had a lovely conversation, quite hilarious, as she ate hay and oats, and she could hear them in the woods calling to her with the chant, "One of us, one of us, one of us." A beautiful golden horn had grown from the top of her head, and her boyfriend's truck had arrived, and the chant, calling her back to the forest. The sun was going down, and the full moon sat on the horizon. Her boyfriend ran to her, taking her arms. That silly Billy was not one of us. Not! Jess, what's going on? What's happening to you? Is that a horn? He asked. He yelled. Yes, isn't it pretty? Don't you love it? I'm one of them now. One of who? A unicorn. They're calling me. I must go. No, Jess, take me with you. No, you're not one of us. Jess took a couple steps back and rammed him through with her horn. The blood ran down her pretty gold horn, down her face to the ground, and the boyfriend lay dead. She ran to the chant in the woods. The blood looked black in the moonlight. Her hands, now hooves, hitting the ground. Her unicorn tongue licked the blood off her long face. Delicious! She was almost with them now, and that silly Billy could not be one of us. Hey guys, I'd like to thank you for listening if you've made it this far into the video. I would also like to encourage you to like, subscribe to the channel, help us grow and become something more, comment and share these videos. I also encourage you to check out our other videos, and please check out all necessary social media links that we add to the description below. And cheers. This is your host.